Hi, it's Cold here from Singing Matters once again, and I'm going to just start talking at you about singing technique off the top of my head based on a few things that have happened with students recently. I've had a lot of new students since I started this channel, and that means that a lot of people are at a similar kind of stage in what they're doing, in the sense that they've had a bunch of lessons. They've done like a run of 4, or maybe they're getting towards the end of the second run of 4. And I think people came to me because they liked the way I described things. They understood things perhaps better than they had done from other teachers, or at least it gave a different perspective, which is often the case. And, you know, you might find you need to move on to someone else after you've been with me for a while. You know, I went to a lot of different people. It's all part of the journey along the way that eventually gets you to where you want to be. Now, the words journey and eventually are pretty crucial in that sentence, and it's not as quick as we want it to be. I think that's what I'm going to try and get at today. I'm going to talk about the mixed voice and just getting through your bridge, and you know, all these students I've got that come from completely different walks of life and musical backgrounds and things like that, some with more experience than others. They're still all struggling with very similar things. And it's often just trying to get through the bridge. It's just that part of your voice that everyone struggles with, that I struggled with, that all singers have to contend with. And they're always trying to navigate or having to think about in their technique. Now, why is that? Well, it's the hardest part of your voice. It really is a tricky thing to master. I've got some new ideas coming to mind at the moment of how to try and describe some of this stuff, and I'm trying my best to find new ways to get people to understand it, or different ways to sort of visualize the whole process. But not only that, but understand the journey and the length of time that it might take to get there, you know, and the kind of mission that you're on, because it's not going to come quickly. We want it to. I wanted it to. I remember being there and thinking, God, you know, just I think before I even knew really what mixed voice was or all these things were, I was trying to tackle a part of my voice without really having any terminology or understanding and stuff. It turns out it was the same part of the voice that everyone's struggling with around there. Now, one thing I've tried to explain recently, and I think one of the problems people have when they're trying to train themselves, is they treat the bridge and those few notes around the bridge, because it is just a few notes where it really is difficult. It's difficult to get the balance. It's difficult to navigate in a range of ways, because a load of adjustments have to happen at once. All sorts of different adjustments are happening. Why is it always I start talking and I feel like I need to clear my throat when I'm doing these videos? It's probably from eating ice cream. That's what it is. You know, anyway. Right, so it's really difficult in that part of your voice, and it needs extra care and attention. It needs so much more attention than the rest of your voice. So much more. Like, I'm going to really deliberate on this point today. That's kind of what I'm getting at in this video. If you're driving along a straight road, a nice easy road, a nice easy journey, you get to near the bridge and it starts to go a little bit windy and a little bit more rocky and a little bit more hazardous. As you get up to the bridge, it's suddenly like that. It's fucking everywhere, excuse my language. It's so far from a straight road with no bumps. It's a bumpy, rocky, off-road mountain track that's zigzagging down a hill like this, or up a hill, whichever way you want to look at it. If you go, and here's the thing in practice, and here's the thing in training, and here's the thing when you're trying to master this stuff, take your time. Take your time on those few notes, way more than you do every other single note. What do I mean on that? There's ways you can do that. There's ways to get more out of your practice if you can be bothered with the boring stuff. And a lot of the kind of cliches or elaborate analogies or metaphors I'm going to try and use to try and explain some of this stuff, you know, it's a bit like, oh, yeah, whatever, just the boring sort of thing that a coach wants to say, the teacher wants to say. But I know it only too well from my own experience, as I always refer to. you're driving along a nice easy road, you suddenly get a little bit of a bump in the road, and then all of a sudden you're zigzagging down a mountain. If you go too fast, you're going to fly off the side of the cliff and you're going to be gone, right? In practice, what does that actually mean? What am I talking about? Well, I think what I've tried to get from some students recently is like, I think I worked this out, and I gradually worked it out myself. You can't treat the transition between, say, that F to the G there, the same as you treated, that B flat to the C down there. There is so much more adjustment going on between those two notes. There is so much more adjustment. Everything else in the voice is kind of easy. Even though, like I've told you before, you do have to start blending as you get through these notes lower down. It's still a hell of a lot easier, but there are some adjustments that start happening. The first few bumps in the road, the first twist and turn that you come across. But by the time you get up here, it's insane. You're suddenly on a completely different track. This is not the road you were once on. And for a few notes there, it's the most insane journey ever. Let's put it like that. So going back to what I was saying, how does this translate to practice, and how you can train yourself to carefully, slowly navigate the turns and the bumps and the mountain track, for you, if we're going to use that metaphor. And again, it sounds cheesy and you feel like an idiot trying to make these, but you've got to get through to students so that they do it the right way and they don't rush it and they don't just expect it to happen. Or people get so frustrated, and I was frustrated as well. But take your time then, and gradually. What's happening in there? Apart from my voice flipping in and giving in a little bit here and there because I'm just sort of lightly going into it. Again, not very warmed up. This is how I have to fit these things in. But if I'm going, there's already some adjustment happening, like I say. But when we get up to this point of the voice, there is more adjustment having to happen. What adjustment are we talking about? Well, again, you may have picked up on this. You may have a vast understanding of this sort of stuff from other training you've done, other teachers, other videos, whatever. But the chords are pulling back. The muscles at the back are pulling back, the CT muscles. I don't tend to use the terminology. I use simple layman's terms these days more and more because I don't think people need it. I think they just need to have a picture of what they're trying to do, understand the mechanics. You don't need all the biological, medical terms for things. Fine if you want to learn that stuff. I mean, I've kind of almost been so used to not using it, I've forgotten half of it anyway, because I want to explain it in a way that makes sense to singers, not showing off with loads of elaborate terminology that just confuses people and they feel like they're in a science lesson. Having said that, there is a bit of a science lesson involved in understanding your voice and improving your voice. You can't avoid that if you want to do it. Things dinging at me. So we're trying to go through that transition. What are we adjusting and what are we navigating? You are adjusting the chords pulling back. Now, when we hit the bridge, by definition, you've got this kind of 50-50 balance thing going on with the muscles that hold on at the front that are associated more with chest voice and the muscles at the back that are pulling back on the chords, pulling them backwards. And please think of this as a horizontal movement in the larynx, in your throat, but it's good to visualize that in an exaggerated way. Obviously, your chords are tiny. They're in the air pipe, they're tiny in here at the top of the airway. They're really small, so, but let's picture that as this big thing happening. Picture it. Like this, pulling back. The chords are pulling backwards horizontally in your throat. That's a movement that's happening. like that, pulling back. So let's imagine it in this horizontal way. There's a pulling back happening. If those muscles are pulling back, you can't hang on to the muscles at the front, or it will strain, tense, flip suddenly because it's too much. And again, you might not know how or when you're controlling these things or how to control these things and what's going on, but having a picture of what's going on can really, really help. It really, really does help. You know, I don't think there's a coach that would disagree with that. You can tell because all coaches do all this gesticulation and mannerisms, and they try and help you visualize it. So the chords are pulling back. And to help get this placement right, think of it like that. Think of the low notes at the front. And think of the high notes sort of going back here. Now, once we've gone back, the chords are doing that, okay? The chords are doing that horizontally. But there's also, so that's one of the things that's adjusting, the balance of muscles. You're letting go whilst you pull back. You can't pull back if you're holding on. Well, you can, but you'll cause strain. So there's an adjustment of the pulling back. There's an adjustment of the letting go in order to let them pull back, because we need to kind of, if it's 50-50 and then these muscles at the back start pulling on the chords and taking over, then it's 60-40. Muscles at the back are suddenly doing more of the work than the muscles at the front. Then it's 70-30, 80-20, 90. By the time you get right up to that top of your range, you're clinging on with the tiniest little bit of these muscles at the front, but you're not letting go completely. But if you hang on 20%, I mean, this is just a way of putting it. This is just a way of kind of visualizing it and trying to see what you're doing and work out what you're doing and understand the changes that are happening, the adjustments that need to happen. If you're trying to cling on at the top of your range, 20% of chest voice is still hanging on, it's going to be struggling. It's going to strain. It's going to be awkward. So we need to let that adjustment happen. We need to let go whilst we pull back. Let go whilst we pull back further, let go more, pull back more. Okay, that has to happen at the same time. So there's this, that can take a lot of getting used to in your voice. And people are a bit sort of one extreme or the other often when they're not got used to it and they haven't sort of learned that agility. They haven't trained their voice to have that agility. This is why it takes time, because it just doesn't happen quickly. It's not a case of just going, oh, try this, and then you've got it. No, you need to train the muscles to get the balance right. And that means every time you change the note, every time you're singing a different note, that balance is going to be different. So you might find it easy on this note. You might find it impossible a couple of notes higher up. There's a constant change. There's a constant grey area between the balance of these muscles happening. It takes time to get used to the balance of those things and make the adjustments necessary. That's part of it. What is also happening at the same time is the resonance wants to shift up here. And again, some people are completely at ease with the idea of resonance and what's going on and completely understand the idea of what the muscles are doing, or they can sort of picture it. I might show a diagram even in the video, actually, which I do for students. But whilst that's happening, we're also letting the sound go up here. What do you mean letting the sound go up here? Well, it resonates more in the cavities behind the nose, in the roof of your mouth, and up here. And what I've been saying recently, which kind of matches what's in this book here, which is quite almost got some classical grounding, if you like, but it's still so relevant. When you're in your chest voice, think of it resonating here. Obviously, it's vibrating your chest as well. That's the whole point of it, calling chest voice. But think of it, almost place it. Try and feel the note in the mouth. Ma, 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 ma. It's in there. But you're creating this shape because you're sort of chewing on this ball of energy that's in your mouth if you get the setup right. I'm talking about a few different things at once, but I'll try and stick to the point of this adjustment. What are you adjusting and what's changing every time you change the note? We've got the stretch happening. Obviously, we need your breath function to be right or none of this works. Get in touch with me if you think you need to work on your breath. I can help you with that. It takes a bit of time as well, but it's crucial for all these things to work. You need your breath function to be working, but we'll leave that to one side at the moment. So you've got the pulling back happening. You've got the chords getting pulled on, stretched like that. we're also changing the resonance. If you think of chest voice sitting in the mouth, it's nice and in the mouth. Now I'm really lifting that and lifting my soft palate and opening the shape up in the roof of my mouth, which you want to always be doing. You need to be doing something with your instrument, not lazily, with nothing happening inside. That's not using your instrument. But so have a think about that. Am I doing anything? Are you doing anything to help the voice resonate and to create a shape in there in that cabinet? Again, leave that to one side for now. But we've got that nicely sitting in the mouth. Even if I make it a bit brighter with a bit of that nasality, it still feels like it's on the lips. It's in there. As we go higher, the resonance just naturally shifts up here. It's just where it goes. It just is what it is. It resonates more of the bone structure in your face and in your head, and it shifts up here. And there's this real sense of it kind of going over a hill. It feels like it goes into here, and suddenly you're not generating your voice from down here. You are, but it doesn't feel like it. It feels like it's up here. It feels like it's almost like your vocal cords are in the back of your face somewhere. You know, they're in this part of your face. And what I've been saying to students recently is like, split your face into 3 cross sections like that, 3 strips. There's the mouth, then there's this middle section that goes right behind up to kind of the roof of the mouth, the jawline, and the behind the nose. Behind the cheeks, under the nose there as well on the top lip, but no further down. And that's why we say to find that squeaky pharyngeal sound. Yeah. It's like that's living in there. It's not down here. It's not. There's no sense of it here at all. It's like there's nothing here. Yeah. Even though the sound is being made here, it does not feel like anything is happening here. It really doesn't feel like it. You're not thinking about this at all. If you feel stuff down here, you might be squeezing, you might be pushing the breath, you might be gripping on the cords with all the extrinsic muscles around the outside to try and control it when you don't need to. So we need to try and relieve that. We need to try and feel around underneath the chin, what you can feel happening, larynx raising up in the throat, these muscles grabbing hold and sort of getting involved when you sing. And we need to try and open up and relax all that. Even sing with your tongue out. Some of the stuff I've done with a couple of students this week. Singing with your tongue out, because what you find is, and one student really noticed this, your tongue's fighting with it. Your tongue doesn't want to stay out because the muscles at the root of the tongue are getting involved. And it's like, so you sing with your tongue out and suddenly you notice your tongue's like doing stuff. It's like, right, that's a problem. That's something to try and shift. And one of the only ways to do it is to sing with your tongue out and stop the habit. Stop the habit of those muscles grabbing. It's a weird thing to do. It feels completely stupid. But if you're keen enough on your voice, you will sit there and do it. And it's not just like, sing with your tongue out. You really need to see the purpose of these things, these exercises. You are trying to train a load of parts of your body that are really hard to isolate. Not only are they hard to isolate from the brain and to get control of, they're used in survival. They're part of our survival mechanism. They're used in swallowing and eating. They're used in stopping food going down the airway. Everything to do with survival is instinctive, and it's very closely attached to the voice. And when you try and tell your voice to do something, all those muscles just go, yeah, I'll do something, and they all get involved. And it's your job as a singer, if you're still having trouble, to work out what's happening. What is your body doing when you try to sing? there's so much going on that people aren't aware of. So you might have to try singing with your tongue out and get these muscles out of the way and get everything feeling relaxed. But back to what I was saying about this resonance shift, and back to what I was saying about the journey being a rocky road and suddenly twists and turns and you fly off the side of the mountain. We've got the muscles stretching. We've got the letting go of these muscles at the front and the pulling back of these muscles. But we also have this shift of resonance where it feels like it starts to live up here. Naturally, the sound is up here. It wants to resonate up here. It's where the voice sits. So behind the nasal cavity, it's not like you're singing into the nose, because that presents a certain sound that you don't want. But we need some nasality, which is kind of the back of the nose and behind the cavities here. Just doing a video. So my daughter wanted me, but she's gonna have to wait. So we've got this shift happening. You've got the adjustment of letting the muscles let go, your chest voice letting go. We've got the adjustment of the muscles pulling back. If you don't let go enough, you will struggle to pull back. But we also need to let the resonance start to shift up here into this middle strip of the face, kind of like here sort of thing. It's above the mouth, or at least above into the roof of the mouth and not further down than that. So when I'm doing like sirens or exercises or scales or whatever, and I've tried to talk to a student, I've been like, right, what am I doing that I'm taking for granted now, that I've got so used to doing, that I can do without thinking about it, that I need to explain to people? And it's all these adjustments happening at once, gradually, bit by bit. And that's why we need to take it slowly. That's why if you try and rush, sometimes scale patterns are just too fast for you to be able to make those adjustments that are required through the bridge. That's a balloon popping. My house is full of balloons. It seems to spend most of the year full of balloons. I've hosted a lot of birthday parties in the last couple of years in this house. Anyway, so already there. Went up to the F sharp. There. There's already this sense of nasality. The note is wanting to be further up there, happening that far down. But if I go, I'm already doing some of those adjustments. I'm already doing, again, lower down than I said a minute ago, where it gets really hard and really crazy. But if you don't start down there, it's harder and harder. So on that like third or fourth note, definitely the fifth one, I'm already going lighter there. And what people do, what students do, and what I used to do, and you're not aware that you're doing it until someone points it out and they hear you back. That's why coaching can be really useful and speed things up. If I get more and more intense, because that feels like what you've got to do when you're not making these adjustments, when you're not letting go, when you're not letting the chords pull back, and when you're not letting the resonance start to shift, I think it just naturally feels like you need to just go louder to get that sound out, that note. And then you're just going to get tense, more and more tense. And I remember singing like that. I couldn't do anything other than that. And I've seen people do it at me in lessons, and it's really good when they can change it and they go, oh yeah, that was better. So what do? You notice when those adjustments start to happen. And this is why your feeling and your sensation is the crucial thing. And that brings me to another point, which is such a big factor in how people hold themselves back. They're so bothered about what they sound like. Of course I'm bothered about what I sound like. I'm a singer. I want to sound good. Unfortunately, if you're still struggling through your range, and I just sound like such a lectury know-it-all when I say things like that, but I know how hard it is, and I know what it's like being on the other side of it. But unfortunately, you're just gonna be causing trouble for yourself if you don't learn to back off. I think I lost my train of thought there. Excuse me for that. So don't go loud That's what I was going to say. Often what we think we hear is going back to that same point. Stop thinking about what you sound like and just feel. Start feeling your voice. Stop listening to it. Stop listening to your voice. Like, I can't say it enough. I don't care what you sound like. Actually, I almost laugh when people say, oh, well, it sounds a bit this. So, was it relaxed? Was it balanced? Was there a sense that you were singing that note with ease for the first time ever? I know that's true because you just told me. And I can see it in your face, and I can see it in the facial expressions, and I can hear it in your voice. But people aren't sure because it feels weak, or it sounds this, or it sounds that, or it sounds the other. And I get it. I mean, because obviously I've been there. I'm telling myself off. If ever I sound like I'm kind of telling you off, I'm telling myself off. The young me who've ruined his voice. And it's like, trust that the voice will do the work for you and sound good and sound intense, powerful, impressive, and strong, even when you back off. And it's amazing how much you can back off for it to still sound strong. My laptop's going to die. I'll just quickly plug that in. I had an email through from a person I've followed for a number of years about sort of business marketing stuff and things that I never open, never look at. But years ago, I followed a couple of courses when I first attempted to do YouTube, actually thinking about it. But it was saying how non-edited, long-form videos might just be the way forward at the moment. But I've just naturally taken to that, and that I'm going to let myself do things, just being myself, being a person, talking at you about singing. And I'm not trying to do anything polished, and I'm way happier with that than having to edit everything and make it perfect. So that's why you get little anecdotes about my life and my daughter trying to come in and me talking about my laptop dying. So what am I trying to say? Stop listening to yourself and start feeling it. I don't care what you sound like. You want to stop caring what it sounds like. Most of the exercises that we do aren't supposed to sound too hot, right? They're not supposed to sound great because they're just working with the voice. They're trying to understand the mechanics, and you're trying to retrain all these really complex sets of muscles and these complex sets of muscle memories. That's a really poorly worded sentence. You're trying to adjust all these things that have become a habit and change those habits into something that works for your voice better. And that involves making stupid noises. It involves doing things to a bit of an extreme, and we're not interested in what you sound like. I know that's ridiculous, especially if you've got gigs or recording or rehearsals going on and you want to sound good. But can it be the goal to sound and feel free and at ease and balanced and effortless? Could that be a better goal right now? Just to try and get to a point where the notes are coming out and they feel okay. Like, you're halfway there if you're getting that. You can sort the sound out later, and I know it sounds like such a drag, and I didn't want to hear it, and I don't think people want to hear it, but I don't know, if you get to the other side, you can only get there when you've gone through the journey, and people are trying to rush the journey, and that's why they fall off the mountain, like I was saying, going back to that image if you can. Right, so where was I? I'm all over the place. We're trying to make all these different adjustments at once. You're trying to feel your way through that. Going back to this kind of... I'm letting that go really light, actually. If I try and hold down in the mouth and I try and grip onto my chesty sound, we start to get trapped. We start to hear that tension building up. So I'm already letting go of the muscles at the front, letting these muscles start to pull back. I'm lifting the soft palate. I'm lifting my shape inside my mouth. I said I'd leave that to one side, but it is crucial in helping you get up to the higher point of your range and into this other resonant area. But with that, I'm also adding a tweak of that pharyngeal resonance, the squeaky, creaky sound that helps pull the chords together and helps it get into this part of resonance. I'm using a bit of that pharyngeal, and you hear me change the tone of it where it sounds a bit rounder and a bit fuller. There's still this sense that it's living up here, and there's that bit of bright, resonant sort of pharyngeal sound coming through, but you can round it off. That's what I'm talking about. Find the coordination first and then colour it afterwards. So the adjustments that I'm making, letting go so that it can start pulling back. But adding a little bit of that pharyngeal sound. Now, I've got a package of exercises that I use that I bought off Kevin Richardson, the New York vocal coach, or the New York vocal studio, whatever it was. I can't remember his actual original, the name of his his school, if you like. But bought that years ago, and I still use it on the way to gigs. It's just a really handy bunch of warm-ups and exercises. He's got a thing on there talking about pharyngeal resonance, and he gets people to do stupid noises. And there's loads of people doing stupid noises on the internet for singing. He's got a bunch of them that are, I guess, his versions of it that I use with my students. And on the way up, when you're not so high, when you want to start adding that pharyngeal resonance, when you want the resonance to start going back here and up to the back of your mouth and starting to be able to live in this section, if we're splitting it into 3 sections again, we need a bit of that pharyngeal resonance. It helps pull the chords together when you add this creaky, whiny sound. His sound that he uses for this lower part is like a toy car, a kid playing with a toy car. And you turn that into singing, and you can just see how it sort of translates, and you can see how it feels right. But that's the sort of sound to start adding the pharyngeal resonance on the way up. When you get a bit higher, he does things like this. Listen to how bright that is. Meow, me, 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 meow. Meow. Wah, wah. That's when you get a bit higher up. So we're adding this bright pharyngeal squeaky sound. Sounds ridiculous. I've just did a range of absolutely absurd noises at you. But these are the ways that people get into this part of their voice. You need it. It's the way to navigate this part of the twists and turns that you're going through in your journey up to head voice, up to the top range. But lower down, it's like this car noise. So back to how I was describing these adjustments that you're having to make. If you're trying to hit all the notes the same and you're getting stuck, there's something not changing to help you. And it's your job to try and work out what you need to be doing to let the adjustments happen, what adjustments need to be made, and how to even begin doing that. It might seem completely alien to you, really hard to achieve at first, but gradually over time you start to intuitively not want to feel that strain. So you start to find ways to remove it. You'll get a sudden flip and it will go breathy and falsetto and weak. All sorts of things will happen on that journey to get there. But what you're looking for is to be able to control with minute adjustments as you move up through the range. I'm already adding a bit of that pharyngeal and it feels like it's going up there. To play around with that sound and almost overdo it, but we're not creating that sound with a squeeze, and we're not letting go completely to get it either. So if you didn't start making that adjustment down there, when you get up to the real bridgy notes, you're going to struggle. Don't think the guitar's actually on. You know, once you've sort of lifted at the top of the roof of your mouth to help the sound go up there, those two in the mouth, then that one up there. That adjustment needs to happen or it's not going to work. If you try and do that while still pushing for it, it's like, okay, that's a problem. So what do I need to do there? I need to learn how to back off so that it's balanced and you get this, you're eking your way up to the next note. And this is what I was saying about going slowly. I would say do things like feel for it. Slowly feel the bend upwards from that note to that note. And letting go while you're on that move. That's why you need to take it slow. In between that note and that note. You feel it good up there. You don't want it to flip. You don't want to anchor down on it so much that it starts to get intense. And it's your job as a singer who's trying to fix this stuff. I always say that at the moment. It's your job. This is your job. It's your job as a singer. To feel that adjustment. And you might think, oh yeah, but it sounds weak and it sounds whatever. The goal is to feel, nearly said it wrong. The goal is to feel balanced, relaxed, at ease, and like you've got headroom, like you've got freedom in your voice. That's what we're looking for. Forget what it sounds like. And that doesn't sound bad either, by the way. Going lighter does not sound bad. You'd be amazed when you really get used to hearing the detail of what singers are doing, as I've said before, how often they are actually backing off really quite a lot. And again, I have to keep reminding myself of that still. And if we get problems going from there to there or there to there, then there's one or other type of adjustment not happening. And we've just got to slowly, slowly, slowly feel our way through the twists and turns that help us navigate that really tricky part of the voice. There's probably a few things that were in my head earlier that I forgot, didn't quite get back round to, but I'm going to leave it there for today. It is the hardest part of your voice. So give it the respect it deserves and try not to rush it and try to just gradually feel your way through some of those intervals between notes and see what you can get. If you just push for that, no, that doesn't work. You're trying to feel for the adjustments. You're trying to feel for the right amount of letting go and the right amount of still holding on, the right amount of letting the sound go up there. You know, you take your time with these things and you will gradually start to piece it together. Now, that's the one thing that was in the back of my mind that I wanted to say. I think often when people's voices are not used to working in that part of their range, it will sound like shit. In fact, it might not even come through very well. It might not come through. You know, you might get a really horrible sounding voice. You might get a shaky, wobbly voice. I'd encourage people when I'm teaching them to sort of go with that, even though it's like, this is kind of awful, because the alternative might have been you draining it and gripping on it so much that the only way to get a note out was by overstraining and gripping, and your voice has kind of got used to working like that, and it feels very vulnerable and very unsure of itself when you try and use it any other way, to the point where it's like it feels like it can't get a sound out unless you do it with all that strain. But try to train the voice not to almost be addicted to that instinct and that feeling. We're trying to remove that feeling. When you remove the feeling of tension and that force on the note, and you get it just to slide up instead, it may sound really wobbly. It may sound raspy and horrible. It might not come through clearly, but if we're getting a clearer sound, it's sometimes a sign that you're in the right direction. When I hear people's voice go, like it's really unsure of itself because you're right on the brake, it's kind of good because you're allowing the brake to happen. You're letting the voice get used to feeling that 50-50 balance that it's just found. It's not sounding great and it's not got the control that you want there and it's not kind of working very well. But if it feels at ease and it feels balanced but just sounds horrible and isn't coming out very well, it's probably a sign that you're in the right direction. It's just going to take a bit of time to strengthen that up, strengthen the muscle memory up, maybe just tweak the chords a little bit to pull them together. You know, it's better that it feels at ease and sounds like shit than doesn't feel at ease, regardless of the sound that you think it sounds like, because often that strong sound is not a great sound either. So I hope that makes sense. Just let it almost sound a bit bad in that part of the range there. Let it sound, you know, a mess. If it feels easier, it's for the better. Just 1 minute. So yeah, she wants me to take her to watch her friends play a football match. Fine. Okay. That's new. So that's it for today. I hope that helps. Take your time around that part of your voice. Understand that it is such a tricky part of the voice to navigate. If singing's this hard, singing on the bridge is this hard, you know, it's just so much more attention to detail that's required around there. I'll leave you with that. As always, I'm available for lessons. You can come and have a free 15-minute consultation to see what we can learn about each other and whether you want to work with me. I'm really enjoying my students at the moment. Join me, singingmatters.co.uk, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you very much.